2010 meeting of the Radnor Township Environmental Advisory Council. This is actually a combined November-December meeting for those that may be wondering why we're meeting on a Tuesday. So this will be our last EAC meeting of 2010, and then we will regroup in January on the fourth Thursday as usual. The first item on our agenda is the review and approval of the minutes, which have been distributed for review. Does anyone have any corrections or changes to the minutes? Oh, okay. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Great.
Second.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Minutes are approved. And thank you again, Anne, for preparing the minutes. We really appreciate that. Excellent job as always. Okay. Next item on the agenda are announcements. And I wanted to say that we're probably going to have a couple of openings on the EAC come next year. So if folks are interested in joining the EAC, you can feel free to reach out to any of us to talk about what it is that we do. Applications go in through the Board of Commissioners, however. And I want to thank everybody that's participated in the EAC this past year. And particularly Heather Riley, who's going to be stepping down, has made a lot of significant contributions with the Radnor Green website, with work on coordination with the schools and recycling and composting and things like that. So I want to thank her for her work, as well as Dave Prescott, who's done great work with us, and we always have appreciated his comments and thoughtful insight into the work that we've done. So I want to thank those folks, and if other people are interested in joining the EAC next year, certainly encourage you to do that, bring your ideas and enthusiasm. Thank you. Okay, does anyone have other announcements that they would like to share? No? Okay. All right, then we'll go right into our work group reports, and we'll start off with the climate protection work group, and we'll turn to you for that, Josh.
Okay, thank you. As you all know, we are in the early stages of developing a greenhouse gas reduction action plan. We have met with AJ Antonini, who is the at the police department here, and maybe 2 weeks ago, or last week, I met with Bill Hagan, who oversees public works. I had a very good meeting with Bill, and Robin attended as well. We had he brought forth some great ideas and a lot of insight into how his department works. It's very interesting. He is enthusiastic about our initiative. He, of course, has a large dose of reality in his position in terms of budget right now, but he understands that this is a long process, meaning that the action plan is implemented over a long period of time, so that he can foresee a time when the budget would be more favorable. But he also understands that some of the initiatives that we might be implementing as part of the action plan could actually help him save money. So he's excited about that as well. And what I'm to do now is to sort of summarize our meeting for him and for us, and send that out by email so that he can have a written record of it, and maybe we have a few more interviews to get scheduled, but it's definitely time that we start working on a draft action plan.
Okay, that sounds great. The additional interviews that we have to schedule, we have maybe like a couple more. Do you have particular folks that were?
Yeah, I do. I don't have them right. Well, maybe I do have them in front of me. We wanted to meet with the finance department.
Okay.
And there are a few other stakeholders that maybe don't have necessarily are employed by the township that we might want to talk to beforehand. But that really shouldn't slow us down in developing an action plan.
All right, that sounds great. Very good. Very good. Well, I'd like to, see what we can do, the beginning of next year to really try to move this along. And I know, I've been working with you and Robin, and we've had scheduling difficulties trying to meet with the right people, but I'm kind of ready to move it to the next step. We'll try to get the interviews done, and to the extent that there's other stakeholders in the township, other folks that are interested and have ideas, encourage them to send them to us so that we can get everybody's input and really start working on a draft plan so that folks can then review it. I think that probably will help people crystallize their thinking as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great.
Have you guys already met with Leo Barnaby?
Yes. Yep. Great. Thank you very much
You're
for
welcome.
pushing that forward, Josh. I know you got a lot of balls in the air, and we really appreciate you making those meetings happen.
Sure.
Great, thanks. Okay, the next item on the agenda is sustainability, and we have a variety of topics under sustainability, but why don't we start with Anne with the sustainability series programming?
Well, the program that was supposed to take place yesterday got bumped by the township budget meeting, so we're looking into rescheduling it for January, February of next year, so more on that later.
Okay, do you want to remind folks of the topic and such, because I think it sounds like
Yeah,
a really
the topic
important one.
is conservation development.
Mhm.
So how to create better green space while you develop.
Okay, all right, great. Terrific. I wanted to give an update under sustainability on the electric vehicle charging pilot project. We had talked about that last time. I had mentioned that Community Energy had contacted the township to see about the availability of a couple of parking spots to install an electric vehicle charging unit, and the hope was Community Energy was applying for a grant with the hope to install these charging stations from the western suburbs along the main line all the way down into Philadelphia, and to start to get people thinking about electric vehicles and to have resources for people that were interested in doing that. One of the concerns was that Radnor didn't have a lot in the way of parking spots in downtown Wayne, which was where they were looking for spots because it's so tight down there. But after further discussions, the township manager and in discussion with commissioners thought that they could provide a couple of spots across from the fire department in that lot down there, which would be great if Radnor could participate. So they put together a letter to Community Energy that can be submitted with the grant application, saying that should they get the grant, that Radnor is willing to participate and offer some spots. And so they had apparently gotten letters like that from all the folks who they would like to include in the pilot. Grants application, I assume, was submitted. Once they find out whether they've been awarded the grant, then they'll get back to everybody on where those stations would go, depending upon the funding that comes through on the grant. So that's a nice update. It's nice that we can participate.
And I know you mentioned who Community Energy is last time, but I can't remember.
They are a Radnor-based alternative energy company. So as I understand it, they're not only interested in pursuing pilots like this, but that they will help to develop solar projects and wind projects. I think they got their start with wind, and that's what a lot of people know them for. But evidently, they're developing other types of renewable energy projects, and I think they're also doing consulting in electricity demand contracts, I think. So I think they're pretty broad-based. Skip?
Yeah, I had a new thought tonight because it took forever, of course, to renovate the Wayne train station. But that seems like a possibly very useful contact to make between SEPTA and the groups. There are people that are parking cars for 10 hours.
Mm-hmm.
There's electricity on almost all the time in terms of lighting the stations.
Mm-hmm.
The trains run on electricity. It seems like a perfect marriage.
Yeah. That's a good point. I'll pass that along, and if they haven't already considered it, then perhaps they can, since I think the grant is still under consideration. Okay. Okay. Great. Okay. Under sustainability, I'm going to just tuck green building under there, since we don't have a separate line item for that. Sloan, do you want to speak to that?
I've been doing some research for possible brochure on information for folks who are doing renovations or new home construction in Radnor, and have come across a nice resource of articles that was linked to the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection site. So sent it off to Brenda. She looked at it. It's a series of articles about green energy ideas for your home. So it's a nice little library for folks who want to do some work. It's not a brochure, a single brochure, but it's got a lot of interesting ideas for folks. So we're going to link that to the Green Radnor page, and I will continue to look for materials that might be useful for green building, and maybe boil that down to a brochure, although we can discuss whether it's best as a brochure or just sort of resources in this form. So.
Right, I guess what you had been talking about originally was a brochure, when we were talking about how can we encourage this, a brochure that can be handed out to people that perhaps are coming in for permits and such, which I think sounds like a great idea. The flip side would be if we had a web page that had lots of different resources and, wasn't necessarily something printed on paper, but people could go there anytime and it would be continually updated, so we wouldn't have to worry about kind of revamping it, but link it to useful information. There might be something to be said for that. I don't know if folks want to weigh in on that and have any ideas about, pro or con.
Well, we had discussed the Delaware Valley Green Building Councils. They're the Delaware Valley is the local affiliate of the U.S. Green Building Council, and they would be another resource potentially to link to them. So
It's a good idea.
I'll send that to you.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be great. Thank you. Yeah, I think it's sort of a balancing act. The advantage of a brochure is it's sort of concise and it's not overwhelming. On the other hand, we could leave some things out, and it may not be updated. There's so many innovations going on. It'd be a shame to lock it down and then exclude
Although,
stuff.
maybe one idea would be something that straddles the two, in that if we have a website devoted to, a web page devoted to these issues, and we have some write-up in there. So it's not just 100 links and people get overwhelmed, but some discussion.
If we give a little guidance and maybe we can think about what would be a good way to kind of make it a little less overwhelming, because the disadvantage of just lots of links is it starts to become one
Seems
of the
like
hard
too much
things
work.
for people in life is having to
Yeah.
reinvent the wheel and do all this research for themselves. So if we can maybe pinpoint it a little bit or put some commentary around it, I think would be helpful. But we'll have to talk about that.
Okay, all right. I think that's probably a good way to go. So we'll regroup on that. Okay, good.
Right.
And if anybody does have links
Yeah.
that you think are particularly useful on this specific topic, send them to Sloan so that we
Right.
can make sure that we do include them.
Right, exactly.
Okay, good. Okay. Anything new, Sloan, with regard to WaterSense?
No news. We checked that there are some brochures still out there on WaterSense, so I think we're good for now on that.
Okay.
So we'll keep you posted if there's anything significant that comes from the EPA on that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Nothing dramatic.
All right. What we might want to think about doing too is, because we have the time at the meetings here, I'm not sure how many people are watching at home, but assuming there are some, if maybe we just bring a WaterSense tip to each meeting. What do you think about that? So
That's a good
nothing
idea.
too much, but at least some little things so that we're continually reminding folks about that.
Okay.
Since we, have this partnership with EPA, it can be another way that we can be promoting the program.
Okay, let me get a few and see.
Okay.
We'll try it out and see how
We'll
it
see.
goes.
Okay. All right, good. All right, that's, I think, all that I have under sustainability. And do you want to talk about open space?
Well, the, excuse me, the subcommittee that was pulled together to look into open space issues has gotten the go-ahead, and we're looking at plans from surrounding townships to try to figure out what we would need to include in our plans. So that process is in its early stages.
Okay. Is there anything to discuss with regard to is there some talk about a parcel near Conestoga? Is there anything? about
I
that
haven't
yet,
been
or- Okay.
Privy to any discussion about that.
Cemetery?
Mm.
Oh, right, yeah, no, nothing further
Mhm,
on that.
okay.
I think I did, yeah, that was something that we discussed by email, the
Mhm.
question of, and they had really circulated it, as it turned out, more by way of information. Apparently, there is a statutory obligation for a township to assume responsibility for any abandoned cemetery. And people have been looking at this one for a while, trying to find out if anyone else would take it over. It's an old Baptist cemetery, not too far from the intersection of West Wayne Avenue and Conestoga Road.
Mhm.
It has historical value, and the Radnor Historical Society has been looking at it from that vantage point, but it seems quite likely that the township is going to be assuming responsibility for it.
Okay. All right. Okay, great. Thank you, Ann. If there's anything that you, obviously, if there's anything that you need from us on open space in terms of review or anything, just let us know. And other than that, we'll just leave it to your leadership and guidance. Okay, great, thank you. Okay. Does anybody have anything that they want to discuss with regard to kind of community environmental awareness or anything of that nature? Heather has, normally been updating us
Right.
on that, but, now with Heather's absence,
Yeah.
it's an important part of what we do.
I had a little anecdote to tell on Energy Star. We got a new refrigerator. We diligently looked for an Energy Star model.
Good job.
Thank you. But interestingly, online we ordered a model that was Energy Star online from
Mhm.
to be unnamed retailer in the area. It arrived. There was no Energy Star indication on the refrigerator. So we actually went to the EPA site and checked, and it wasn't actually an Energy Star model.
Sounds like some greenwashing going
Yeah,
on there.
I'm like, so we called them up and said,
Mhm.
guys, this is not actually an Energy Star. And they agreed.
Mhm.
And they came back, picked it up, and delivered a new Energy Star verified appliance. So just a little anecdote, interesting that I think retailers realize that people are looking for this, but you have to be a little extra careful. You should say it on the appliance once it's there.
Have a sticker. or
There should be a
something.
sticker or at least some literature about it in the appliance when it's delivered. So they were fine once we pointed it out, but
Mhm.
just being a little.
Well, that's good that you share that, because
Yeah.
some people may not think, they may think,
Right,
well, we
well,
ordered the
we saw
right
it-
thing.
It
and-
was
yeah.
right. It was on a national retailer
Right.
site, and it was an error. So if you're going down, and looking for Energy Star or any of these things, you might need to double check that it really is on the on the EPA site. So.
Well, so here's a thought too. Back to the green building and thinking
Uh-huh.
about having this, really page for maybe homeowners to
Ideas,
look at,
right.
to have a little
A
discussion
link
of what
to-
Energy Star is, and then a
Right.
link where people can go and they can
Link
check
to
their
verify
products.
what
Yeah.
they're buying, right?
Right.
Okay, that's a good idea.
Okay. Good. Thank you for sharing that.
On that school thing.
I think at the last meeting, I might have brought up that I had been involved with Heather in the, it's called West Green, Wayne Elementary School Green Team. It's part of the PTO, or we're a subgroup of the PTO or whatever. And they're doing some really exciting things. So, but I don't think there's any update since the last time. But in terms of your question about community awareness and announcements, I'd be happy to take over that one role that Heather had in terms of updating on how we're doing at Wes. And I think I might, and hopefully I can maybe broaden that a little bit, and I'll do a little bit of investigation to find out how a couple of the other elementary schools are doing and their green team. That I think they each have a green team. Some might be more active than others, but that give you a more broader picture.
That
and maybe I
sounds
could even
great.
step it up to the other schools too.
Uh-huh.
But let's start. I'll just start with the ones that I'm involved in.
Well, I have kids at Ithan, but I'm not sure what their green team is. I haven't been involved in that, but if I can help in any way in that regard, let me know.
Okay.
Okay.
Brenda,
Yeah.
I had a question. Maybe this issue has arisen before I was on the committee. In the last year or so, I guess maybe it's a little bit more, but we went to commingling our recyclables, and I wondered if that, number one, was because of a cost issue or an efficiency issue. I know there are very elaborate plants that deal with commingled recycling. Does it increase or decrease our carbon footprint for the township to do commingled recycling?
Well, we can, one of the things that your point raises is we can ask facilities here, Peggy Hagan, to get us the statistics to see how we've done. But I think part of it was viewed as a cost savings issue because you can sort of go and collect everything at once. You don't need segregated trucks, and so therefore perhaps you're reducing your carbon emissions because you're not driving around so many trucks so many times. And that generally the research seems to show that when you do commingling, people tend to recycle more, versus when you don't do commingling, people are always saying to themselves, oh, I'm not sure, does this go in, does this not go in, and then they don't throw it in, versus I think with the commingling, maybe people lean the other way, and so the statistics that I've seen are that recycling tends to go up when you're commingling. But
That was Bill's early. Wasn't it Bill Hagan's early assessment, was it, that there'd been an increase?
Right.
That volumes had gone up. Now, he suggested that I get back in touch with him in the early winter, or January or February, so he'll have his year-end totals then for us. But it sounds like the monthly totals are a little bit harder to come up with. But he'll have his reports finished that he needs to have done, to have all the recycling numbers on it. We'll be able to do a side-by-side comparison on, because I think we started this in February, so it's close. It'll be close to a full year, and we'll have some kind of a comparison at that time.
okay, that sounds great. Maybe, I know he's come to meeting before and told us all about how, things were working with the recycling, so maybe see if he's willing to join us, for a brief presentation on how it's working. I think that's something that a lot of folks would be interested in. Okay, good. Okay. Very good. Now we're at the section with liaison reports. And Skip, as I've told you before, you don't have to come with something, but it's an opportunity. We leave a placeholder there if there's something that you think might be interesting or relevant to the EAC based upon what you folks are doing.
This particular meeting, I do not have anything because I was away for the Planning Commission meeting. I was not able to attend.
Okay. All right. Very good. Okay. All right. Is there anything under old business that folks want to return to that hasn't already been covered? We do try to have our little categories of things, so usually there's not something there, but I'll leave the opportunity for folks in case we've forgotten something. Okay. As far as new business is concerned, I wanted folks to think about whether there are things that they wish the EAC would be doing next year that we're not already doing. I mean, we're trying to cover a lot of things, and I don't think we want to spread ourselves too thin, particularly since I'm really interested in all of us. Josh is leading this effort on the Greenhouse Gas Action Plan, but I think we're all going to need to be participating in that and assisting with it to kind of get it off the ground. But if there's things that y'all think, look, we're not focusing on this, and this would be a really, beneficial project for the EAC to be doing, I'd like folks to be thinking about that. And then when we meet again, and email me, or when we meet again in January, let's talk about that. Because I don't want to just have everybody kind of, rolling along with what's on the table if there's other good ideas out there that we ought to be pursuing. So I don't know if anybody has something that they want to talk about now, or no. Okay.
Well, I think To that point, you're asking like what should the EAC be focused on in 2011? Is that what you're saying? Or-
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming that the things that we're already engaged in will continue to work on them. But if there's something that we're not already doing that we think
Okay.
would really be beneficial, then we should be thinking about that.
I think there's going to be some exciting opportunity to talk about interesting parts of our what happens in this township through this action plan. Just in my meeting with Bill Hagan, it was enlightening, some of the things that are going on. And just to give you one example, Bill and his I'm not sure exactly who helped him do this, but have planted 75 trees since the fall of 2007. And I don't think he's getting any money from the township to do that. I think that's I think the trees might have been donated by Chanticleer. I'm not positive of my notes like this, but that's very interesting. That's going to tie into our greenhouse gas reduction action plan. It's a beautification of the township. So there's a lot of people who would be interested to find that out, and I'm not sure that information is getting out there. So I think we could have a topic to talk about.
Right.
A little bit different than we maybe have in the past.
Two things on that. One, we should check on the Radnor Green opening page where we have all of those pride points, because it
That's
might
on
be listed, but if it's not, we ought to get it
Oh,
listed
okay.
on there.
Great.
So let's double check on that. And then the other point that I wanted to make is that we did have Shade Tree here talking about, were you here when
Yeah.
Shade Tree came? Okay, talking about some of the things that they were doing. We were talking about the ability to, people that are interested in donating trees for planting, maybe get something going. So,
Are you
maybe that's
suggesting that
something.
was related to what Bill was doing, you think?
Well, because I thought that they were saying that Chanticleer had donated the trees that they were talking about.
Oh,
And
okay.
you're saying Chanticleer donated, so I'm assuming it's the same.
Maybe they're the same, okay.
Yeah.
I might have missed that connection,
Right,
okay.
right.
Well, that's actually exactly what I was thinking of, was that there's an opportunity to really enhance the connection between, tree planting and reforestation and the greenhouse gas work. So I think we should definitely do what we can to encourage that and figure out where there are good opportunities for more reforestation on public property in the township and that kind of thing, so.
So that may be something that we can have. I'm envisioning the action plan as having, I don't know, however many, 20, 30 suggested ideas and actions, some that the township takes, some that we encourage community folks to take. And so maybe there can be something that, we develop in there as a way to get people to start thinking about donating trees and planting, because I don't think people think about that so much. I mean, they think about it in terms of shade maybe, but not necessarily the environmental impacts or effects.
Well,
from
and there may be an opportunity to work with the Parks Department. I mean, I was just at Sawmill Park the other day over the Thanksgiving break, and there are just a large number of very substantial trees that have fallen recently, and looking at how we can ensure that our forested areas are regenerating, maybe some additional maintenance work would.
And while the township-owned space is obviously our direct purview, or in terms of what we have direct control over, but the EAC can, as one of our suggestions, offer the townships either assistance or encouragement to private homeowners to plant on private land. Where we could develop some sort of a low-cost purchasing, a conglomerate, not a conglomerate, but a pool, where we could assist that. So it doesn't necessarily have to, it can still end up on our action plan, even though it might involve private.
Right,
yeah.
right. Yeah, that's true. When we developed the greenhouse gas inventory, we were just looking at the township operations.
Right.
We weren't looking at the community, but I agree, there's no reason why our action plan couldn't involve, community outreach and efforts. Okay, good, great.
I have a comment. I wonder if it would make any sense, somebody like Chanticleer has buying power that individual homeowners don't have. that maybe there would be some way to coordinate their next purchase of trees with a list of homeowners who wanted white oaks or copper beeches or whatever, and on the day in April, trying to think of the Arbor Day. I'm sorry, brain freeze. I'm a little jet lagged yet. On Arbor Day, maybe everybody could take delivery of their tree, and it would, be a community event, and it would save everyone perhaps 10 or 20 or 30% of the cost of the tree.
That's a good point. Okay. That's true. And, we have this Tree City designation, which I don't really know what it is, but I know they have an event every year associated with it, right? So maybe we can talk again with Howard
Bill.
Holden or Bill.
Bill brought that up in our.
Oh, he did?
meeting. Yeah, he's actually working on his application for renewal, I think it was. And I think the trees that he planted in the past 3 years have go toward that, points towards qualification, qualifying for that Tree City designation.
Okay, good. Great. Well, that's some good ideas. Anything else?
I have more things, but I think I'll bring them
Okay.
up one at a time. Maybe next week.
Okay,
next
very
time I'll bring some.
good. Keep us wanting more, right? Okay, very good. Then I think we are adjourned. Oh, wait.
One question, actually, Skip, you brought up the citizens advisory group's recommendations, and I did look at it. It was very interesting. I just wondered if you could tell us where it stands in the process and if there's any update.
My commissioner had forwarded that to me. The play out of that in public meetings I largely missed because I was away for about 3 weeks in November. So you may have seen more than I've seen.
Has anybody seen what's happened? I mean, they had some interesting recommendations on budget reductions. They also make recommendations about not doing purchases of open space. So I don't know where it stands in terms of whether it's being reviewed or debated. Does anybody know what
Your microphone.
I don't know if others tuned into the discussion about it last night, but the commissioners were intending to follow up on the recommendations. There was some difference of views among the commissioners, from what I could tell, as to whether or not they need to go through each of the 9 parcels that were recommended for sale and evaluate the public benefit of those parcels. There were some commissioners who just felt, Elaine in particular was indicating that she felt that the investigation had made it clear that there's a need to document more thoroughly the purpose and the public benefits of parcels as they're purchased, so that it's all recorded and that can be tracked going forward. So but there seems to be some support for doing an evaluation of the parcels. The one thing I will note is just that I didn't hear a lot of people speak to it, but I certainly would hope that in any evaluation that is done, the natural resource benefits of those parcels are given full consideration. And that wasn't really brought out last night. It was, more focused on, the human population's connection to those parcels. And Hank Mahoney in particular mentioned one of the parcels and how it was potentially a future stream bank restoration site to capture some stormwater and flooding. Anyway, I think that may be something that we will want to just, have an eye to, is that those natural resource benefits are fully defined in any, evaluation.
So did you get a sense that an evaluation was definitely going to be conducted, or there was kind of talk about the need for one?
They
Because we
didn't actually make a decision. This was more hearing from the public and hearing from the recommendations of the report. So I think there's going to be more discussion about the action they're going to take. But
Okay.
it seems as if some follow-up is expected.
I think one of the things the Open Space Committee would expect, or subcommittee, I guess we are, would expect to do is to do a more thorough inventory of the 50-some parcels that are owned outright by the township, to do a comprehensive assessment of their value to the township, and also to try to explore, and we're trying to figure out how to get a handle on this, with the number of easements that the township holds. We're not sure that that's actually, that information is pulled together anywhere, so we're looking at that.
Township has conservation easements or just regular, oh, you don't know?
I don't think
Right.
anybody really knows.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. All right. Okay. All right, well, I mean, I think, so that's good that we've got you on that committee, if that's the committee that's gonna probably be undertaking the assessment. So we've sort of got a entry point into that, to making sure that we have the natural resource considerations accounted for, as Robin says.
Robin, I missed that, that meeting yesterday. Are there any other discussions in these budgetary discussions that involve topics that we're interested in aside from open space?
I have to say, I haven't read the report, so I just tuned into a portion of the meeting last night, which was at least 5 hours long.
You didn't watch the whole thing?
I can't report on the whole thing, so it's probably worth our exploring, so I'm sure
I had
we
read
can
an
all
article
the
in the
report.
paper about the possible outsourcing of garbage collection and recycling in the township. I think they are, I think what Bill had explained was that nothing is off the table at this point in terms of how do we get our budget under control. And I think that should be something that we follow closely, because it's important. We've done so well to get to this point. And not that private collection would necessarily hamper or make it worse or whatever, but we should definitely keep an eye on it to find out which way it's going.
Okay. Okay. Anything else? No? Okay. Well, thank you all very much, and we will regroup in January. So have a great holiday. Okay. All right. Thanks.
Thank you.